Most of my decorations are either thrifted, crafted, inherited, or free. And, I know a lot of you might think that my Christmas decor is just pumpkins and Santa hats, but that's not really my thing. I like to create a space or an atmosphere that's moody, dark, and enchanted. So tonight, I'm going to give you 13 of my favorite tips to create a dark and magical atmosphere. I'm Nick, and welcome to Practical Peculiarities. Tip number 1. If your tree is too short, raise it up. I splurged on this tree a few years ago, and it's served me well. I know it's silly for me to suggest to invest in a good tree, especially because we're talking about budget-friendly options, but this is sort of like a in the long run type situation. And when I bought this, I bought it for my apartment that had low ceilings. Well, now that I moved to a house that has higher ceilings, I want a bigger tree, but I don't want to pay the price tag for a bigger tree, especially in this economy. So my solution is to raise it up on a platform. I made this platform out of cardboard and recycled packing materials from my move. This platform adds an extra foot to my tree, which is pretty amazing. You'd think that this platform would cave in because it's made out of paper, but you'd be amazed at the miracles that cardboard can create. Tip 2. For a dark and moody tone, go for deeper colors that aren't so bright. I'm covering the base with a tablecloth that I found at the thrift store for $4.99. I like to think of my Christmas tree as an elite club, and only the best ornaments can hang on its branches. So that leads me to tip 3. Be very picky with the ornaments that you decide to put on your tree. The ornaments that I choose to put on my tree are vintage, magical looking, and somewhat odd. Some of them are not even meant to be ornaments at all, like these copper jello molds that I like to put together to create a sphere. I tuck these into the branches so that they reflect light. When I found a lot of these jello molds, I died, and they were like $10 for everything. I then start by adding the larger ornaments. And when I buy these, I buy them in odd numbers. This is because I think they arrange better on the tree that way. Tip 4. Mix and match old and new ornaments. My favorite ornaments are these vintage ones that I inherited from my great-grandma and my grandma. They're so charming with their shapes and patina. Some of them still have spray snow on them from like the 40s. Adding ornaments that have been passed down from generation to generation really makes a Christmas tree so special. I then like to add these thrifted Victorian-inspired ornaments. They really make the tree feel like the ghost of Christmas past is lurking around. Now, I'm not saying that all store-bought ornaments are bad. I actually think they're pretty, but I only use them to fill in spaces where I need some extra color. I also like to buy ones that have a little bit of uniqueness to them, like these ones that have a little bit of a weathered look. And you're not going to believe this, but this Lennox tree topper was only $10. I love this tree so much, but there's only one thing that I hate about it, and it's that the pre-lit lights are so bright. So this leads me to tip number 5. Turn the lights down. So I like to use a dimmer switch to turn the pre-lit lights down to a nice orange amber tone. Otherwise, you can't really see the ornaments when the lights are too bright. You also want to add mood lighting throughout the house, so turn on any candles, candle lanterns, the fireplace, and turn on all the lamps. I like to light my house like I'm in the era of electricity just being discovered, the times where it was sparse, used sparingly, and of course, you want to stray away from any LED lights. Don't do it. Tip number 6. Get creative with your thrift finds. I like to use things that have a little bit of a sinister feel to them. Like this vintage bell snickle. He's holding whips, and I'm sure you can guess why. Also, this Santa, which looks like a wizard to me. He used to be holding a tree, but it got burned down. My mom actually burnt it, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that story later. I got this fake snow from the $1.25 store, and I'm going to mix it with some Epsom salt. I then arrange my figurines on the base of my cloche. I like to sprinkle the snow salt over the figurines because I like the way it piles around them, like a fresh falling snow. I learned how to do this from Martha Stewart, by the way. She's the best. Now you've turned thrifted items into fancy decorations. So I actually found this Santa last year, and when I found him, he was holding a tree. And, you know, he was up the whole season. And then I put him away after Christmas, and I noticed that his tree burned down. And I was like, oh my God, how did this happen? Like, I had it up on a shelf, so I was assuming that it got so hot in the apartment that it disintegrated the tree. So I put it away, I didn't think about it. And then 5 months after that, I was looking through my camera roll and I found a video that I took of my mom using a flame-throwing wand, Harry Potter wand, that somebody sent to me. And she pointed it right at that shelf where that Santa was. So ultimately, I discovered that my mom burned down that tree. So here's the video. Go.
Did you get it?
Yes. So yeah, she's so hilarious. Anyway, moving on. Tip number 7, shop off season. I find the majority of my best Christmas decorations in the spring and in the summer. I was at the thrift store in October and I found this groovy centerpiece. At first sight, some people may think that it's outdated and hideous, but I see what it could be. And that's the key. Always see what things could be. So first, I'm going to take off these 1970s velvet fruits. Personally, I love these fruits because they remind me of Willy Wonka. So I picked this up because I like the glass shades. They remind me of a Charles Dickens Christmas, so I think it's perfect for what I'm going for. I found this broom at the thrift store for $13, and I knew I had to get it. It's so unique. So I just put a little bit of mistletoe on it, and now I have a perfect Yule broom. Tip number 8, incorporate childhood traditions. So I was at the dollar store the other day and I found this old-fashioned candy mix. Now my grandma used to put this in dishes all around the house when I was a kid, and it was so fun. They're my favorite, you know? So I definitely thought that I'd put them in my new house. I also found this red dish and I thought it'd be perfect to put the candies in. It's a nice trip down memory lane. Tip number 9, hang your garland from a pole. I know a lot of you have probably heard of the tension rod garland hack, and I think this is genius. I have this rod above my pocket doors that's supposed to be for heavy curtains. I found all 3 of these garlands in a trash bag at the thrift store for $5. And they're great garlands, they're nice and fluffy. I first start by wrapping a cheap garland around the pole to camouflage it. One of my biggest pet peeves when people do this hack is when the pole is exposed. Next, I use zip ties to hang up the thick garland. I didn't have any extra ornaments to hang on the garland, so this leads me to my next tip. Tip 10, make your own ornaments. I made these stars out of paper and painted them gold. I'll show you the folds at the end of the video. They have a hole in the middle, so I poke a light through them. Another one of my pet peeves is when there's exposed cords when you're decorating. So tip number 11, hide your cords. I'm using a brown cord to tuck into my pocket doors because it matches the color of the pocket doors. So you always want to get an extension cord that matches the wall if you can. And there's my simple garland. It's nothing show-stopping, but it does the trick. So I bought this whole dining table and 6 chairs from Marketplace for $30. It needs a little work, but I'll get to it after the holidays. So I was stressing out about how I was going to decorate this table because everything that I had was so boring, classic and traditional and blah blah blah. So it wasn't until I found this article from 1834 that was entitled "The Night the Stars Fell." And it was about this meteor shower that was so huge that people thought it was the end of times. In 1834, astronomers didn't really know much about meteor showers, so it was a whole fiasco. So I gathered everything that I had that reminded me of this event, and that leads me to my next tip. Tip 12, shop your home first. I did this before I went to the thrift store. It's a good idea to do that because when you go into the thrift store, you get so overwhelmed by all the crap that they have that you just will come home with so many things that you don't even want in the first place, and then you have to take it back. For the tablecloth, I'm using a velvet curtain. Next, I gathered my brass candlesticks and set them in the middle of the table. I knew that I was using brass, so luckily in the thrift store, I found this brass cake holder, which is perfect for the centerpiece. I also found this Santa that's on a moon. Luck was on my side that day. So I put some pillow fluff on the cake stand, add a tree so it looks like it's poking through the clouds, and some more of the snow. I then glue the ornament to the middle of a cloche. And I have a perfect centerpiece, both magical and festive. I already had these greenery placemats. I found these gold chargers for $10 for a set of 6, and I put a black plate on top of them. I then add these cut crystal glasses, and I love how they look. The light just sparkles through them. Believe it or not, I found this whole set of 26 things, cut crystal glasses. The whole thing was $25, and yeah, I thought this was like the biggest steal of the year. They look so fancy and they feel so fancy, but you know, they were only like $1 each if you add it up. So I'm then finishing with an edible wishing candle and a brass candlestick. If you want to learn how to make these edible wishing candles, I'm actually posting a video about them next week. It's a recipe from my new cookbook, Peculiar Baking, and they are just so fun and you're really gonna love it, so check that out. Now for the final tip. Tip number 13. Create magic for your guests. In the Victorian times, they would often create a canopy over the table that was made out of ribbons. And this is my first year owning a real antique chandelier, and I'm not going to pass up the opportunity. I found this bag of gold pom-pom garlands at the thrift store. At first, I thought they might be tacky. Then I remembered that Christmas is allowed to be a little tacky, so that made me brave enough to actually bring them home, and I'm so glad that I did. I attached them to the center of the chandelier and pinned them at each corner of the table. I found this fringe for about $2 at the thrift store, and I decided to make a tassel at the end of each of the garlands. I then hang this big star in the center, which, you guessed it, is thrifted. When people were observing this major meteor shower, they said that it looked like the stars were coming out of a central point in the sky. So they drew some of these illustrations that show like an umbrella of stars falling down. So I just thought it was really cool that my chandelier and all these garlands is kind of like an ode to that. And with that, I hope you enjoyed tonight's video. We're still renovating our cheap old house, and we will for a while, but that didn't stop me from wanting to decorate for the holidays with you, so thank you for being here. Also, if you haven't already, check out my new cookbook, Peculiar Baking, a practical guide to strange confections. This book is full of holiday recipes and it makes a great gift, so check it out. Lastly, if you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. Oh, and stick around to learn how to fold those paper stars from earlier in the video. Happy holiday, and good night.